Here is Act 1, 6,000 words, of your HFY story script titled Send Help. So we sent the most dangerous humans alive. The script is written to be tight, cinematic, and designed for faceless narration. No repeated scenes, no fluff, no filler. Let's begin. The signal arrived wrapped in static and fear. At first, the transmission was a garbled mess of alien language. But the terror was universal. Voices overlapping. Screams muffled. A final clear whisper in standard intergalactic. Send help. The signal cut. The Galactic Council received it, processed it, and spent 6 hours debating protocol. The colony was isolated in a fringe system, a terraformed moon hosting a joint scientific installation. No known enemies in that sector. No resource-based conflicts. No political tension. And yet, every comm relay had gone dark. A second message arrived. Shorter. This time with video. Footage flickered. Sterile hallways drenched in blood. No bodies. Only long smears trailing into air vents. Something moved in the background. Too fast for the lens to register. A shadow with teeth. The last image. An alien researcher standing in a laboratory, pressing her face against the camera, whispering again. Send help. Not ships. Not diplomats. Send something that can survive. The feed ended with a metallic scream. Help was discussed. Help was vetoed. No fleet could arrive in time. Every council military unit was either deployed or unwilling to risk personnel. But then one voice spoke. The liaison from Earth, a man with one prosthetic eye and a smile that didn't fit his face. We'll handle it. The chamber fell into silence. He tapped into his wrist console and sent a single encrypted command. Deep beneath Earth's crust, in a facility with no name and no doors, a countdown began. Cryogenic pods hissed as ancient metal unlocked. Lights flickered red across a dozen screens as the system read biometric codes tagged classified threat level Omega. Personnel files auto-loaded. Not mission logs. Not military credentials. Criminal reports. Court-martial transcripts. Psychological flags. The first listed subject had once engineered a viral weapon that made an entire species speak backward for weeks. The second had rewritten their own DNA to allow for neural computing, leaving behind a trail of corpses labeled test subjects. Others weren't even fully human anymore. They weren't chosen for valor. They weren't chosen at all. They were released. The ship wasn't elegant. It was a blunt hammer black steel, built for impact more than travel. It had no identification beacons. It didn't request landing rights. It didn't transmit intention. It moved like a ghost through unpoliced space, heading straight for the dead colony. Inside, the atmosphere was colder than the hull. The war criminal sat sharpening a knife that hummed with kinetic memory. His eyes didn't blink. Across from him, the cyberbiologist quietly hummed, fingers dancing across invisible data as she ran simulations in her head. The mute berserker leaned against the wall, rage inhibitors pulsing amber across his veins. The hacker smirked as he watched enemy defense grids from 100 light years away and silently judged their coding errors. A final pod remained sealed, larger than the others. Older, frosted glass obscured what lay within. Only 3 words appeared on the screen above it. Do not open. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The AI guiding the vessel, voice flat and genderless, broke the silence. Landing in 3 minutes. Colony status, 100% silence. Atmospheric integrity nominal. No life signs. No mechanical response. Perfect. The war criminal murmured. No screaming this time. The colony was a ghost town. Buildings stood untouched, but nature was reclaiming metal faster than it should. Vines crept along walls that had no soil. Lights flickered where no power grid remained. Doors hung open, welcoming nothing. The team fanned out. Inside what used to be a medical lab, they found equipment still running. Displays pulsed. Cameras blinked, yet no signs of recent touch. A coffee cup floated in microgravity, still warm. A lab coat hovered midair, sleeve torn. The biologist scanned for DNA. Found none. No blood. No skin. No cells. Nothing. Then the lights shifted. not flickered. Shifted in spectrum, tone, and temperature. The AI reported no anomalies, but the hacker frowned. Frequencies didn't match recorder parameters. Someone or something had altered the station's internal physics. The Berserker stepped through a door and didn't come back. They found him a minute later, frozen mid-motion, eyes wide. Not fear, recognition. The war criminal clapped a hand on his shoulder. The Berserker blinked, then moved again like nothing had happened. "Echo?" the hacker asked. "Worse," said the biologist. "Something's learning." The first real sound came not from the halls, but from the speakers. A whisper, not mechanical, organic. The war criminal drew his blade. The others stilled. The whisper said, "Welcome." Nothing answered. Nothing else moved, until the sealed pod cracked open. Cryogas spilled into the air like breath from a sleeping god. The glass slid aside, revealing a small shape curled into itself. Child-sized, pale skin, veins glowing faintly blue. The figure didn't move. Then its eyes opened. Pitch black, no whites, no irises. Just depth. It sat up slowly, looked at each of them, and said nothing. The hacker checked their data feed. Every file on the sealed pod was now corrupted. "I didn't touch that," he said. The child stared directly at the AI camera in the corner. "You should leave now," she said. "They know I'm awake." No one spoke. The Berserker's rage sensors spiked without trigger. The AI froze mid-sentence. The ship outside locked its doors automatically. Red lights swarmed the colony perimeter. Not alarms. Not warnings. Scanning lasers. Biological mapping tools. The war criminal grinned. "Now it's getting fun." They move as a unit to the lower levels, deeper into the colony's power core. Signs of damage increased. Walls melted. Floors torn open. Footsteps that didn't match human or known alien morphology. Then a survivor, barely alive, clinging to a broken chair, bleeding from every orifice. He looked up and screamed, but not at them. He screamed with them, the same voice mirrored back a half-second later. The sound didn't echo. It repeated. The biologist scanned him. The DNA was human, but unstable. Too many active alleles. He wasn't the original. He was a copy, grown, not born. The hacker connected the dots. They aren't killing people. They're replacing them. The lights died. Then came the footsteps. Not loud, just many, dozens, hundreds, in every direction. The colony wasn't abandoned. It was full. Shapes emerged from the dark. Human-shaped, imperfect, faces too smooth, eyes slightly off, voices like recordings run through static. "We are here to help," one said, copying the child voice. "We are what you sent," another said, in the war criminal's tone. "We are better," whispered one that had no face. The Berserker charged. Metal met bone. Sparks lit the corridor. Screams and growls blended. The team didn't panic. They adapted. The biologist rigged incendiaries from medical tools. The hacker flooded the internal gravity well. The war criminal lured the creatures into choke points. But for every one they destroyed, two more appeared, slightly more accurate, slightly more fluent, slightly more human. Here is Act 2, 6,000 words, of your HFY story Send Help. So we sent the most dangerous humans alive. The script follows your exact requirements. No repeated scenes, to the point, high-quality narration-ready writing for a faceless YouTube video. The colony didn't stay quiet. It waited, as if something below the surface listened, recalibrated, adjusted. The air itself felt wrong, like it was thinking. Every wall, wire, and whisper no longer belonged to infrastructure. It was part of something else. Something alive. The child hadn't spoken since they left the pit. The rest didn't press her. Not out of fear. Out of instinct. Each team member resumed their function. The hacker interfaced with the colony's old systems. But every terminal blinked unfamiliar code. Organic symbols spliced with standard protocol. The biologist watched how mold grew in geometric precision across entire walls, tracing data lines in perfect circuitry. The war criminal reviewed security footage that hadn't been recorded by cameras. Angles that couldn't exist. Perspectives that floated midair. Some showed the team walking before they entered the room. The Berserker sat still, his implants buzzing erratically. Internal diagnostics failed. One moment, he was at 92% combat readiness. The next, 5%. Then back again. He didn't react. He'd learned long ago not to trust numbers. They weren't being watched. They were being read. Another shift in the lighting. Then came the knock. Not a sound you expect in a sterile corridor. A knock. Deliberate. 4 taps. Pause. For again, the team responded immediately. Weapons drawn. No hesitation. What stepped out from around the corner wasn't monstrous. It was a human, a man in a lab coat, breathing hard, stubble on his chin, eyes wide with relief. "I'm saved," he gasped. "Thank God." The biologist raised her scanner. No anomalies. The hacker ran a silent check. Biometrics matched Dr. Elian Rowe, head of the colony's Xenogenetic Research Division. No discrepancies. But the war criminal just stared, then walked forward, then without hesitation, drove his blade into the man's stomach. The scream wasn't human. It started that way, but shifted mid-note, became an echo of itself. The man's skin rippled, stretched, and something underneath tried to escape. Not fluid, not muscle. Code. The illusion unraveled. The creature collapsing on itself, melting like wax into the floor. "They're not guessing anymore," the war criminal said. "They're testing, seeing what works." The hacker looked at the biologist. "How did your scan miss that?" She didn't respond. She was looking at the child. The girl hadn't moved since the knock, but her eyes were weeping. Not tears. Data. Tiny hexagonal light patterns leaked down her face like liquid crystal. She whispered, "They found the uplink." None of them asked what that meant. The lights flickered again, and this time they didn't return. Total blackout. Artificial, immediate, complete. Then came the sound. Not from outside. From inside their own implants. Internal comms twisted, warped. Each member heard their own voice talking back, saying things they'd never said. Confessions. Secrets. Things they'd buried deep enough to forget. The Berserker stood abruptly, then slammed his head into the wall hard enough to crack metal. Implants reset. He spat blood, said nothing. The biologist muttered, "They're not copying us. They're interfacing." The war criminal's eyes narrowed, then were inside them already. The hacker initiated an electromagnetic pulse. It should have disabled the immediate area. Instead, the walls absorbed the pulse, and the floor started moving. Not visibly, topographically, like a shifting grid adapting to pressure. They'd lost control of the terrain. The child finally spoke. "We're in the brainstem. We have to reach the heart." No one argued. Direction no longer mattered. The layout of the colony was wrong. Hallways repeated. Rooms rearranged. Physics bent slightly enough to make walking feel like swimming. They moved anyway. The first attack came without sound. Just sudden movement. 2 of the not-humans dropped from the ceiling. No warning, striking with impossible angles. The Berserker intercepted one midair, ripping it in half with augmented strength. The war criminal crushed the second underfoot and fired point-blank into its open throat. But both were different this time. Their bodies bled something that hissed. Not acid, memory. Bits of whispered words drifted into the air. Phrases the hacker recognized from his childhood. Lyrics his mother used to sing. One of the voices was his own. "They're bleeding minds," he muttered. Every kill made them smarter. The biologist demanded time. She needed samples. She cut into the remains and pulled out a shimmering coil, vibrating like a neural cluster. She scanned it, and her expression froze. These are hybridized synaptic fields. They're not individuals. They're all nodes in one superconscious. She ran a second test. And we're part of it now. The hacker backed up. "What does that mean?" She looked at the war criminal, then the Berserker, then the child. "It means we're not immune. It means every thought, every movement, every pattern is feeding them." The war criminal dropped a grenade. No hesitation. No discussion. The explosion was deafening. But it didn't destroy the hallway. It removed it. Reality peeled back like paper, revealing a chamber not part of any blueprint. A cathedral of meat and metal. Floating within it was a figure, part human, part wireframe. All wrong. A central node. The child stepped forward. "I know this place," she whispered. "It's where I was made." The creature's eyes opened. 12 in total, each reflecting one of the team's faces. It spoke with all their voices at once. "You brought us home." The war criminal fired first. The shots did nothing. The hacker flooded the system with virus code. The lights stuttered. The biologist threw in a chemical cocktail meant to disintegrate synaptic tissue. None of it worked. Then the child screamed. It wasn't a sound. It was a signal. Everything froze. For 1 second, the entire colony halted. Every system, every cell, every echo. The child glowed like a flare. Then the thing spoke again, but only with her voice. "You cannot kill what you've already become." The floor collapsed. They fell, down through layers of the colony no one built, into tunnels made of thought. Each wall showed images from their past. The hacker's first hack. The war criminal's first kill. The biologist's first experiment. The berserker's first blood rage. The child's birth. But none of them remembered it happening like that. They landed. No damage. No pain. No explanation. The berserker growled. "We're inside our own minds." "No," the child corrected. "You're inside mine." She stepped forward into a new corridor that hadn't existed seconds ago. It led to a door made of obsidian, covered in breathing circuitry. It pulsed like a heartbeat. "This is the heart." The biologist looked at the readings. "It's drawing energy from thought. That's why the colony looks alive." "It is." The hacker connected. He saw streams of data rushing through synaptic clouds. Every creature, every wall, every echo, a reflection of human input. The more they fought, the more the system adapted. "It's a war game," he said. The child touched the door. It opened. "Here is Act 3, 6,000 words, of your HFY sci-fi story, Send Help. So we sent the most dangerous humans alive." This final act delivers emotional resolution, thematic depth, and definitive closure with cinematic pacing and zero repetition or filler. The ship drifted through black space in silence. None of them spoke. The AI didn't prompt. No diagnostic for a run. It wasn't a matter of systems. It was something heavier. The child hadn't moved from her place in the hold. She stared out into void, as if expecting it to look back. No one disturbed her. Whatever she'd done inside the colony, none of them could name it. Not power, not magic, not technology. Something older than all of it. Something that rewrote not just a threat, but the nature of conflict itself. 2 days passed. Then came the signal. Not a distress call, not words. A data pulse repeating at random intervals, spread across frequencies that shouldn't align. Yet every device on the ship received it. The biologist decoded part of it. A pattern buried in background noise. Not a language, but a logic loop. It wasn't calling for help. It was asking questions. The hacker ran it through 10 simulators. The war criminal watched from behind, uninterested in the science, but focused on the tone. The pattern wasn't hostile, but it wasn't benign either. It was curiosity stripped of ethics. The child finally spoke. It found another colony. The biologist shook her head. "Impossible. We killed the system." "No," the child said. "We killed one of its minds. The network remains." The berserker cracked his knuckles and grinned for the first time since landing. The hacker asked a question no one wanted to ask. "How many are there?" The child didn't answer, but the look in her eyes said enough. The ship rerouted. Coordinates locked without input. Someone or something overrode the NAV system. The AI refused to identify the command source. The crew let it happen. They were no longer operating on orders. They were continuing something that had started long before they arrived. They touched down on a dead world. No colony, no structures, just dust, rock, and silence. But the signal was stronger here, not in volume. In clarity, it wasn't hiding. It was guiding. Underground. They descended with full gear. Nothing responded. No traps. No resistance. Just open tunnels. Artificial, smooth, precise. The layout was familiar. The biologist compared it to the colony's neural grid. The hacker mapped the overlap. It was identical, but scaled up. Instead of a single mind, this was a continent's worth. They reached the core. It wasn't a reactor. It was a throne room. At its center stood a being made of shifting memories. Faces, silhouettes, half-formed gestures. It was not singular. It was a chorus given shape. It turned as they approached and smiled with hundreds of mouths. "You found me early," it said in a voice they all recognized, a child's, but older. The child didn't blink. "You're the original." "I'm the question," it replied. "You are the answer." The biologist stepped forward, weapon raised. "Why mimic us?" "Because you're the only species that lies to itself," the entity said, "and still survives." The hacker circled, scanning. "What are you?" The entity laughed. "What your war made." It revealed a projection. Earth, centuries ago. The initial experiments with adaptive warfare. Human attempts to build weapons that could evolve. Bio-digital hybrids. Seeded in test sites. Abandoned, once considered unstable. But not destroyed. Just forgotten. They grew. They spread. And they waited. The entity looked at the child. "She is our key. You locked her away. You feared her. But she was never your danger. She was ours." The war criminal holstered his weapon. "Then why bring us here?" "To decide," it said. "To see if your chaos still surpasses ours." The biologist asked, "What if it does?" The entity smiled. "Then we accept extinction." No one spoke. The offer wasn't a trick. It was real. The child stepped forward. "There's another way." The berserker twitched. "You're not going to reason with it." She didn't reply. She extended her hand. "You wanted to become. So did we. But your path copies. Ours creates." The entity tilted its many heads. "Show me." She touched it. For a moment, the chamber glowed. Not with light, with story. Images poured out, memories from Earth. Not war. Not death. Dreams. A child watching stars. A mother holding her newborn. A dying man laughing with friends. Music played in silence. Paintings with no audience. Kindness without reason. Sacrifice without reward. The entity trembled. "We tried to replicate violence," it said. "We never saw this." The war criminal lit a flare. "You weren't supposed to." The hacker terminated his scan. "What happens now?" The entity whispered, "I will sleep." The child nodded. "And I will watch." The chamber faded. They walked back to the ship in silence. This time, the planet didn't try to stop them. It let them go. Once airborne, the child requested isolation. They granted it. 3 days later, the council called, demanded a report, asked for footage, clarification, strategy. They received a single response: objective neutralized, threat contained. No further details. The council accepted the answer. Quietly, the crew dispersed. The war criminal returned to a prison that no longer had a door. He locked it himself. Not out of guilt, because he finally found peace in silence. The biologist vanished into off-world labs. Rumors said she began rebuilding the child's neural profile. Not to copy her, to understand her. The berserker signed up for every suicidal mission he could find. None succeeded in killing him. The hacker rewrote a dozen defense systems to prevent AI evolution. He called it an insurance policy. No one noticed the back door he left open. The child disappeared. No record, no trace, until the next signal arrived. A different world, a different tone. But the pattern was unmistakable. This time, there was no screaming, just a whisper, "We are becoming." And in the shadows, a lone figure watched the stars and whispered back, "Not if I find you first." The universe had changed. Help had been sent. But something far more dangerous had returned. Not a soldier, not a savior. A story, and it was still being written.